everyone, and welcome to the Pro Series. I am your host, Eric Doman, and today we have a guest from Pittsburgh. He is a real estate agent here in Pittsburgh, and he also has a podcast. We are going to talk a little bit about the overlap between design and real estate and get a little bit more information on his podcast. So let's everybody welcome Eric McKenna. How are you doing today, Eric?
Doing great, my friend. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us today. I wanted to start off and talk about your podcast, the Eric McKenna Project, where people could find it and what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that very much. EricMcKenna.com is kind of the portal where everything's at. I know we live in a social media world right now, so I'm kind of a quote unquote early adopter of Facebook, and that's kind of been my home. It might be the demographic of where I am in life. It's kind of where it's been. But at ericmckenna.com is the portal for the realty work that I do, the EMP podcast, some work I had done prior with a company called Boogie Street Guitars. It was a guitar design and manufacturing firm, and just all of my stuff is there. And I was just discussing off camera with you. We're about 2 weeks away from having a rebrand and a relaunch, so it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. So on your podcast, who are you bringing on, and what are the conversations like?
The idea initially, Eric, was simply to have conversations, period. I'm 55. And the reason I bring that up is it's extremely frustrating for folks in my age demographic to give up on conversation, to give up on real human interaction. It sounds a little heady, but it's not. People are not sitting down and actually talking to each other anymore. We're getting most of our information, emojis, short 140 characters. We're just skimming headlines on subjects. We're so triggered now to react to people based upon the first things we hear out of their mouth. The idea of sitting folks down in a relaxed setting and actually having a conversation. When I started, I was doing it selfishly for me, and I kind of still am. I had no idea it would grow legs. I had no idea that anyone would even want to listen to folks having real conversations. And what I found is that Joe Rogan and some of the long form podcasts well before me on a broad scale, if you just pay attention to what's happening, people want to be engaged. They're tired. I think they won't admit it, or they're not cognizant of it. But I think folks are starving for real exchange, something a little more in depth than 2 or 3 sentences. The sound bites on CNN, Fox, and all your shows on TV are all scripted and coined in 15, 12-second segments and all that nonsense. This is just an effort to slow things down. So I want interesting conversations. That could be a group of people that I've known for a long time that are out of the box thinkers. That could be someone in sports and entertainment in the town that interests me, because it has to drive me. It's a selfish project. It could be someone in business. It could be someone in law, someone, as we'll talk down the line, someone in design, something that interests me, because if I'm not engaged, it's first off, it's not worth it. At this point in my life, it's a selfish project. And I thought if I filmed these conversations, if nothing else, I would leave kind of a diary for my kids and maybe their grandkids. And it just turned out into something that if I filmed it and put it out there, people just started reacting to it. And I was a little unnerved in the beginning because I made the studio look great, right? And so visually we're solid there. But I was really surprised that as many people cared about what the hell I was doing. So again, it's just the pursuit of real human interaction, real conversations, and an effort to slow our thought process down and let 1, 2, or 3 people get together and have a conversation or exchange of ideas with no agenda, no preconceived notion, no political slant, no kind of bias whatsoever. And, knock on wood, almost 3 years into it now, we're at show 235, I think, which is insane. Wow. It's insane.
That is insane.
Yeah. So it's just an effort to have real conversations, to slow the pace down a little bit and to have a good time. That's it.
Do you have any boundaries on conversations, like topics that you're talking about?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time writing. I've been a big journaler forever. So I kind of plan a lot, right? But I still sometimes feel I'm living off the seat of my pants. But the only thing I stay away from intentionally is I won't have a politician on, or I won't invite somebody who works for a political campaign or is part of a political machine. Someone that, let's say a mayor gets elected and now he has an staff. I won't ask for any of that. I don't want anything coming across as if I'm giving undue publicity to a political candidate. I'm going to
Yeah.
be in a tough spot soon because some of my recurring guests, I think, are thinking of running for office, and I don't want to be a mouthpiece. Although I love them to death, I don't want to be a mouthpiece for that. So I try to stay away. Politics is not off subject. If someone wants to discuss it as part of our conversation, I try not to lead with it. That's kind of the only boundary. Again, it's a selfish show. Case in point, like there are probably some fascinating people in the world of tennis. Great sport. I have no interest in that. So the greatest tennis player in the world might take up residence in Moon Township, a couple miles from me. I'd have no interest in talking with him. It's that selfish. I'm not really out there looking for the latest hit maker. I'm just not looking for pop for the sake of pop, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be something that I'm engaged at, and it's got to be enjoyable. If I want to give up a small portion of my life to do each of these, the exchange has to be worth it to me. And that sounds selfish, but again, I'm not asking anybody to buy anything, and I'm not asking anybody to even tune in. People found it interesting, and they've jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm eternally grateful and surprised by that. But again, it's a selfish show, and it'll probably remain that way.
Absolutely. And I've watched and listened to a couple episodes, and it shows that you're not there for, a lot of these podcasts, you could see that they're getting paid to do these interviews and promotions, and it looks like you're just there because you enjoy it.
No interest. And I've been, as we mentioned a little off camera as well, I, had a prior life before realty, which we can discuss too on the guitars. It was very good to me. I'm in a place in my life right now where you're always, making sure you take care of your family and you work and do a good job at the work that you do. But I'm afforded a position right now in my life where I don't need to monetize my hobby. And that's what we're doing. If I had Joe's Pizza Shop over here and Bill's Bill's Hoagies over here, or whatever it was that was driving the show, that's fine for others. I've just at a point in my life right now where I think that puts undue stress on your conversation. It puts undue stress on your topics, your guest selection, and everything else. This way, everything is not only unvarnished, but everything for the most part is unbiased, and I don't feel forced by anyone or any entity to do or not do anything. If that makes any sense.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Freedom.
And it shows.
Freedom.
Yeah. Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Where can everybody catch your Eric McKenna podcast?
Yeah, so at ericmckenna.com, they're there. We do have a YouTube channel. I've paid absolutely no attention to it outside of just making sure it's a depository for all the shows in sequence. They're all there, all in HD. Very proud of our production values. You can find it at YouTube. Our main depository and most of the interaction comes from Facebook, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, our Facebook project page is there, and all the videos are there, and they're stacked there. And that's where we're seeing the bulk of all the views. Things get shared around. I mean, I'm such a novice in regards to internet publicity. The show was not intended to be grown in a way to make money. So when people look at the show, I often get the comment, Eric, you're not doing. You should be doing this. You should be doing this. You should be. They're probably right, and maybe some of those promotional things we'll look at as we continue to do more shows. But that was never the intent. So yeah, for sure, this show could have probably gone in different directions and maybe have been handled differently from a promotional standpoint. It just didn't really, at the time, it didn't really interest me. So it proliferated on its own.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It just
absolutely
kind of got legs on, and that's kind of rewarding itself.
Absolutely. It shows that viewers are in it for the love of what you're making.
I think, yeah, it just and I don't know. I don't know what your experience has been with the web in general, and in particularly social media. But the great thing about the internet, which I found out real quick in '96, was it's the ultimate free market exchange of everything, money, ideas, all. Because if there's no interest, the thing will die.
Absolutely. We're
Right? I mean,
we're
it's
never even
perfect.
getting started.
It's perfect free market. I mean, if you've
Absolutely.
got no interest on what you're doing, you won't last long.
Mm-mm.
So it's I let the market decide on its own.
Absolutely. I always say that about social media. It's a free marketing tool. Why aren't you using it? Some people, I think we talked about off camera, there's some people that just don't know how to use it correctly, which I'm definitely not an expert on, but it helps your business and every business. Like we use real estate podcast,
No
and it's a
doubt.
great tool. I want to kind of get started on your real estate. You work for, you're a broker for Compass.
Yeah, I'm a real estate agent. I'm not a broker. Please don't
Okay.
put that on me. I'm an agent with Compass. Indeed, I'm in my 8th year here in southwestern PA of being a real estate agent.
Very cool. So all around Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I north of Pittsburgh, south, all the west, all the way to Ohio. I do go east. I try not to, only because of the traffic gymnastics, and it's not fair to my clients if I can't get there in a reasonable amount of time. So
Yeah.
I try to take listings that are north, south, or west of Pittsburgh, but it's a pretty broad area.
Absolutely, it makes sense. A topic that I talked about with a real estate over in London last year, named Grant Bates, talked about the overlap between real estate and design. A lot of the times, I have design clients that want to move in 2 years or move in 5 years, and they're trying to look to design to sell the home. And I feel like a lot of the times, designers and real estate agents aren't talking with each other, not understanding. Because I mean, on your side, you know what's selling,
Yeah,
um, you know what people are looking for. Designers sometimes are just designing for themselves for a portfolio picture or for the customer, but it's not really helping them in the long run.
yeah.
If you had a client that came to you and is maybe moving into the house and know it's not a long-term home to build, what would be your first recommendation for them with home remodeling?
Cool. For us, generally, it's taking a look at. I know it's a canned response, but it's typically kitchens and bathrooms. Okay,
Yeah.
first and foremost. But in terms of actual design, I'm not a big fan of putting up walls, adding additional cuts in existing construction. If that makes any sense, angular cuts. Um, a traditional house can be a traditional layout can be really distorted, and you can do yourself long-term financial damage if you veer too much off of the original design of the home. And I find that from a resale, not from a personal preference, but from a resale and client opinions and views and things that I read. It just seems like the more personalized you make design slash interior construction modifications, the more limiting you become on resale.
Absolutely. And I know this past year, the market has been incredible and people are just kind of buying a house if they find one.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
when the market was a little bit more, you have a lot more to choose from. What are clients mostly looking for in a home as far as layout or design, that you find that a lot of houses are lacking?
Yeah. Cool. It's a tough question. It's really prevalent when I get a reload client that's coming from a different
Oh
market or a
yeah.
different part of the country, where let's just say I don't know, where the architecture might be different from where they originated from to coming here. Pittsburgh's got a lot of older homes, a lot of older neighborhoods, a lot of traditional construction. So if you're raised in that, if all you know is what you've seen, big rooms is a big thing. Again, I maybe it's parochial to me, maybe it's not. But I think when you get a lot of interior cuts or a lot of weird angles, Pittsburghers seem to have an issue with that.
Hmm.
Some folks can claim it's character, but for the most part, most people are looking for the bigger the room, the better. Clean lines, and believe it or not, older construction, taller ceilings um, seem to be on the want list. Now, again, the last year's been insane, and people have been forced to take what they can find.
Hmm.
But obviously, you can't change a ceiling height generally and things like that. But that seems to be on the want list: is big rooms, tall ceilings, a little character.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't think anybody really wants to feel too enclosed. I mean, you may have that small sliver of the buying pool that might want something small, tight, and cozy, but for the most part, no one's really ever going to turn down extra square footage. You know,
absolutely. No. How do you see the market being in the next year?
that's man. Put my Nostradamus
It's
hat on. I thought 2021 was going to be the big question mark, but it unfolded in a relatively predictable way, especially the second half. I
Mhm.
don't believe the market is contracting or slowing. It may be seasonally slower now than it was in the summer, but it's 2020 and the early part of 2021 was a huge run up. So it's kind of unfair to compare this month with like April prior, but it's still pretty strong, and buyers are getting more of a selection now, which is wonderful. Some of the profiteering that was going on during the run up is starting to come down, so it's starting to normalize to a degree, but I would still list it as a seller's market. And I believe at least the first half, the first 2 quarters of 2022 should still remain a seller's market.
Absolutely. I mean, it's somewhat good to hear.
I think so.
uh,
Yeah. I mean, I would like it to normalize. I would like to see 2013, 14, and 15 again, where, sellers were making great money on their properties, but there was enough listings that buyers could go and see 6 or 7 houses before they had to make up their mind. So,
yeah, and
you
not
know,
make it so fast too. You need
yeah,
to like
oh,
put an
100%.
offer in right away, or you're screwed.
It was a challenging time. I won't say that it was my favorite time as being a realtor. I love my sellers and buyers equally, just very different. But I felt terribly for a lot of my buyers, especially my younger buyers, because there just wasn't a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
And a realtor's job is to be their advocate and to be trusted enough to give our thoughts on things, but also understanding what our role is to be an advocate and to execute the wishes of our clients. So again, I think our quote unquote opinion has a place if there's trust,
Hmm.
but we have to keep in mind it's just our opinion. The client is still calling all the shots. And if a client wants to go for something, even if we see all the danger signs, as long as we effectively conveyed our thoughts in a polite way, we must execute their wishes. So sometimes it's tough to see, especially in a market this tight where you'd almost beg a client to be a little patient, maybe 6, 8 months for their own personal well-being. But that's the tougher part for me is seeing some people not having all the choices that they may have a year or two from now or would have had a couple of years ago. So
Hmm.
that was the toughest part.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have so many friends that are struggling now. They're just trying to find their first house, and they and you don't want to settle on something that you don't necessarily like, and then pay $50,000 more for it. That's not what you want to do for your first house. So it's just disappointing to see.
It's disappointing. Inventory is low, and what you just described is exactly the issue. And I've got clients that have faced it too. I've also had some very prudent clients who basically, after a month or two out there, when looking and evaluating, said, "We need to be patient. We need to wait it out a little bit." And I just have a client that came under agreement now, who was looking in 2020 and then let it cool off for a while. They actually made a very prudent decision because the house they just acquired would have been considerably more money during the run up of 2020 and
Okay.
2021, and they got the neighborhood they wanted. Their patience was rewarded. I guess that's where there's not a lot of salesmen in me. If you're going to be a realtor, we're not salesmen. That might be the moniker that the state has for us, salesperson, right? Real
Mhm.
estate salesperson. I've been a salesperson. I know that angle of career choice, and this is more of an advocate circumstance. Like,
Yeah.
the work that you do, and you advise clients. You're advising clients on your ideas and what might help them, and
Hmm.
then we navigate the process for them to make it as easy as possible. That's all being a realtor is. There's no salesman or gamesmanship to it, and that's what makes it the job easy for me because
Hmm.
I'm not there to sell a house to somebody. That's a misnomer. they're choosing the right house, and I'm helping them make a good decision. So
Yes, you're kind of just being their real estate parent, or they're kind of like their mentor, guiding them to buy a
100%.
house or in a profession that they don't know anything about. So you're just their expert for them.
Yeah, I like the word advocate. I like it because I think that's the role that we best play if the agent is humble enough to understand their role.
Mhm.
And not only comes with training and experience and personal disposition, but it's a fascinating line of work, and it encompasses, for our sake of our conversation, it definitely encompasses getting to know homes, getting to know regions, getting to know new construction versus old construction, understanding houses and how they were built in 1870 compared to 1930, compared to 1950s, compared to the 70s, and today. Generally speaking, each time period has specific attributes to it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Last question I want to end with, um, throughout all your years of real estate, looking
Yeah.
through homes of homeowners that just did a quick flip, or they're just trying to remodel the home, that you've seen all these different mistakes. I know I have. What have the shortcuts that you've seen, or just overall remodeling mistakes that you've seen throughout the years that
Wow.
you hope to help a viewer out right now and just tell them to maybe hire
Yeah.
a professional or do it a different way?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of them. And I hate to say that, it's comical almost, and there's probably a ton of memes on the web with bad flips and bad remodeling. But I've seen a lot, and I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of mistakes are made in kitchens and bathrooms, and they're two of the most important rooms at the house for resale, and
Mhm.
probably should be designed with someone like yourself and then implemented by professional contractors, because that's a go when someone enters a house to view the house, they go invariably to two places: the kitchens, and they want to see how nice the bathrooms are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm a guy, I don't entirely understand that, but that's reality. Just shabby countertops, shabby floors, really a big area of complete mess the last couple years, because it's in vogue, are backsplashes in kitchens. I've seen some abominations there. On the broader sense, shabby electrical work, dangerous electrical work, shabby plumbing, things that should have been left to professionals, on the physical structure of the house. On the design front, to be honest with you, people thinking that they're an interior designer, people thinking that and it's a good to have your own taste. I get it. You
Yeah.
got to live there. But
Absolutely.
if you're creating to resell, you got to be humble enough to get professionals' opinions on things. That's what people do, and a lot of people will not take an opinion to heart and do, probably what they should do, and they want to do what they want to do, and then their particular tastes are so parochial, it's not going to translate on a broad scale. So you see a lot of weird, you see the application of wallpaper, because wallpaper's back now, which I
Yep.
can't understand. And I guess tastefully, if it's done, it's great, but it's not being done by professionals, I can assure you.
Yeah.
Mixing and matching of carpets, if you, instead of the idea of a single floor covering for the entire floor of a house, you see a hallway in maybe Pergo, or you see like two rooms with two different carpet colors, things that kind of happened in the 70s and 80s and it was in vogue. It's kind of being replicated now. It's just not enough thought going into how will the house appeal on a mass basis as opposed to a specific like. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I bought my house right before the pandemic. I was lucky. And looking through houses, I found that there's some people that flipping houses that just do it cosmetically, and they kind of ignore
Oh,
the
yeah. The
pipes and
bones, the
electrical
bones.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it looks nice, but you're gonna have to tear down all that cosmetic stuff that you just did, that whole kitchen you just remodeled, because the pipes aren't going to work, or your sink, your dishwasher is not working. So that's a big thing. The flooring thing has drove me crazy. Just like having four different floorings on one floor is just
Yeah, I see it all the time, and when you go to show somebody an older house in Pittsburgh, oftentimes it's styled sometimes back to the 70s or 80s, and you'll see a lot of golds, a lot of interesting patterns on the carpeting, like sculptured carpeting. And you'll see each room had its own color, or each room had its own color of carpeting. And you would think that that was like, in vogue 40, 50 years ago, but you see the same mistakes being repeated. Now, it might not be sculptured carpeting, it might be just plush carpeting, but you see different color schemes. You see, and again, it's in your line of work too, you have to dance on a very fine line, because you don't want to quote unquote offend anybody, because everybody's got unique specific tastes.
Yeah.
My job is to talk about generalities in a way that, the most mass appeal that a seller will reach when they put their house on the market. So, I like a certain color, I like a certain style of game room, I like a certain style of office in my house, but it's very specific to me. Knowing that office configuration, most people look at that and say, that's not functional, I wouldn't want that, that's too cluttered, that's whatever. So if we're humble, we just got to be humble enough to realize that our way might not be the best way, and I think that's something to keep in mind when you're preparing a house, whether it's your house to sell or you're renovating and quote unquote flipping a house. You need to think about the market of people that are going to be coming in, looking at it, and eventually acquiring it.
Absolutely.
It comes back to humility.
That brings up another point that I kind of wanted to make.
Sure.
One thing that I found with relationships between designers and real estate agents is, I've done it and I've helped out real estate agents. Clients come into the house and they know that it's not the house that they want, just because cosmetic changes and stuff.
Sure.
And a real estate agent will reach out to me just to have me come out and look at the house and help the buyer visualize something, or me put up a rendering or something.
Right.
And that completely changes, because if you look at these houses on HGTV and you look at the houses they move into, and you're like, no way, I could never envision myself moving in there. And then the designs pop up and you're like, well, that's my dream house. And that's what we're there for. And if we could help a real estate agent sell a house from that, that's
absolutely
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, this is where I have a love-hate relationship with those shows, because a lot of the real estate shows, like your Love It or List It, there's some practical advice in there. There can be. A lot of it's fantasy. When you see some of the negotiation stuff that goes on, that's theater, that's television. But what the shows do is they show what is possible. And again, yes, anything is possible. If you want to, I hear this a lot, especially from younger buyers, and I just smile. I hear the following: oh, this is our dream home. We're never moving out of here, and we're not going to go through this moving process again. We're going to stay here forever. So, and this is coming from a 25-year-old. So again, I know that's not reality. They probably know it's not reality, but the thing is, people move in oftentimes and they get very specific about their home, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Until you got to sell it. And the great thing about those shows is you can actually buy a house that is obviously visually not where you want it to be, not anywhere close. And with the right designer, with the right ideas and the right implementation, you can almost completely reconfigure the living space. And that the possibilities that are shown to the viewer, I think, are fantastic. It's something that I can't articulate, and you probably would have a hard time even with your skill set completely articulating just in a conversation. So having that visual tool of showing what's possible, I think, probably helps realtors, believe it or not. It helps people. I don't know what you find, but I do find that there are, Eric, I can't stress this enough. The reason why I'm kind of very vehemently against over personalization is there are buyers within the buyer pool that cannot visualize. Some folks don't have a skill set where they can quote unquote see what's possible. They can only see what's in. I've had clients see a yellow kitchen and just the color of the paint made them leave.
Yeah.
It's happened. I know it sounds insane, but a color of a kitchen wall has turned off a buyer, which is, on the face of it, utterly ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
But it happens. It happens. And to ignore that reality, you do it at your own peril.
Absolutely. Yeah. In my own house, I have a couple black accent walls. And I know when I resell it, I'm going to have to paint them neutral
Yeah,
just because of that, because
yeah, right.
black scares people,
It can
even
be
though I
very
think it
cool.
looks awesome, but
Yeah, it can be very cool. No question. No question.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I want everybody to make sure they check you out on ericmckenna.com.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
just you Google me. If you can't find me, you're not looking very hard. Been doing all the things I do for quite a while, so I'm out there.
yeah. And then check out Eric McKenna Project and follow you on Instagram at Eric McKenna Official.
Yeah, and then Facebook, I think it's also Eric McKenna official as well. I think I should
Awesome.
know
Well,
that.
usually if they just type in your name, they'll see you.
Fair enough.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric, for your time today. And
My pleasure.
can't wait to get this up.
All right, my pleasure, man. Thank you so much. See
Awesome.
y'all.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.